Just spoke with our chief referee, Doug Shelton, and yes, there was a bit of a rule change, not going to affect our vintage boats that are out on the water right now. So we'll get to the different rule here when we get to our next heat of racing, but right now, we have vintage hydroplanes on the water. I think we got 3 of them deck to deck to deck going up the backstretch there. Great sight. These guys come out of the pit area, and then when they come around and go across the start-finish line, as they did on their last lap, they're racing at that point. You see the clock reads 0-0 for those of you that can see it. There is no countdown for them. This is the completion of their lap number 1. They are going to run 5 laps. So it's the Agitator with Nick Baldolato. Boat christened in 1965. John Leach, driving the Buccaneer. And Doug Whitley on the outside in that best wishes. We talked about these boats at great length yesterday. Some of the history that is out here on the water. You got boats here from the 60s and the 70s. That boat in third place that Doug Whitley is driving there. The boats are on lap number 2 of 5. That boat that is in third place going up the backstretch there. That is the boat we spoke of yesterday that was owned and driven extremely successfully by Mr. Bill Munsey. But you can take nothing away from the Leach family, who put so many records in the books with that boat that's leading up there, the Buccaneer. If you were hanging around Green Lake or Lake Sammamish in the early 70s, you saw the Buccaneer every time, and you usually saw it out front. Now watch Whitley in that boat in third. Look how squirrely that boat will get. Now he's going to put his foot down in it, and that boat really wants to wiggle on him. But he knows how to handle it, Doug Whitley. And actually, when you watch those boats go down the front straightaway there, you're thinking, you know, they aren't any slower than the boats we're seeing out here in the other classes. They really aren't. But the reason their speeds were so much slower on an average per lap is because what they're doing right now. These boats had to drop almost off a plane to get around a corner. Once they got them straightened out and they were ready to go, is watch Doug Whitley there. He's the boat in third. Once he gets it going and that rooster tail goes up, those things will really move. But they couldn't get through the corners like the boats of today can. They didn't have those great big skid fins that would just hold them in that corner. That's the big difference in the boats today from those of yesteryear, and that's why you had a world straightaway speed record set with an old-style conventional hull in 1960, and that record stood until the late 1990s. Once you wound them up and got them going, they were quick. Nick Baldolato, Agitator, on the inside of the Buccaneer, dead even. That was Bianca Bonancini bringing her blue boat number 6 back to the dock down here. Meanwhile, I've lost track. I think we're on lap number 3. Got a good look here, though, at some of the different styles. You got a little bit of the evolution of the sport of hydroplane racing right here. On the inside, you have a Fred Wickens style conventional hydroplane. Conventional from the standpoint that the driver sits behind the engine. And then moving ahead of him there on the outside, the Buccaneer. You notice the difference. The driver sits up front, ahead of the engine. That's our cab over design. You'll notice on the white boat on the inside, the Agitator, it's got a round nose, sometimes called a shovel nose. But look at the front end on the Buccaneer, the boat on the outside. The front end's cut out, and you have what we call the pickle fork design. Got a conventional, and here comes a very famous conventional set of lines right there on the best wishes. Conventional driver sitting behind the engine. So much has changed when these boats ran back in the 60s and 70s and even into the 80s. They didn't have any radio contact with people back on shore to know what was going on out on the race course. When our other classes of boats come out here and run, like our 1-liters, we have all the radio people standing here next to me. They're in radio contact with the drivers. Not so back in these days. The drivers had to pay much closer attention to the flags and what was going on the race course. Boat going dead in the water, they would not know it. They had to keep their eyes open at all times. Agitator in 1, Buccaneer on the outside. Vintage hydroplanes, checkered flag goes up. A little trip down memory lane. Coming down the front straightaway here. Buccaneer will be the first to cross the line. Agitator in second. Mr. Whitley wants to give it the gun one more time, and he said, yes, I want to show you one more time. We were talking yesterday